This is a Fatal 4 podcast.
Eyes forward, gamers, and prepare to shuffle those feet from side to side. It's time for Squared Circle Strafe, the premier video game podcast of the Fatal 4 podcasting network. I am your host, Pro Wrestling Noah, aka Noah Stewart, and it's time to talk about video games. Welcome in, folks. Time to podcast about some video games. Feeling good this week. We got a decent amount of stuff to talk about. Some good amount of news items, playing some video games. I got this cup of tea with me while I record this week, so I'm feeling pretty smooth, pretty energetic. Got that caffeine going pretty good. I hope you all out there are feeling pretty good as well. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off with the news. First things up first, coming from Polygon, we are told that Dead by Daylight is going to collaborate with Five Nights at Freddy's, saying that this is coming up in the summer of 2025. Kind of a long tail to make this announcement, but I'm sure they want to really drum up that Five Nights at Freddy's excitement. There's been a lot going on with Five Nights at Freddy's lately. They got that movie. They actually just dropped a new game this week, Into the Pit, which is kind of a side-scrolling, narrative heavy stealth game, but I think the visual style of it looks really interesting as compared to the very low budget Polygon stuff that they usually try to do. I've seen some footage of it. It looks pretty all right, but this thing here, Dead by Daylight, you know it, you love it. The asymmetric multiplayer horror game. One player plays as a slasher type monster or person that hunts down a bunch of other player controlled characters, hang them up by hooks and stuff, from what I understand. It is a game that has a very dedicated following, I would say, Dead by Daylight. And every time they come out with new content, I feel like it ends up finding its way on the Steam bestseller list again. So I don't know. They seem to be pretty good, doing pretty good for themselves. But they've done a lot of collaborations before. Stuff like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Stranger Things, Nightmare on Elm Street, all your favorites. And this time they got old Freddy Five Bear himself coming down the pipeline. Haven't been specific yet with what kind of content this is going to be. From what I understand, sometimes it'll just be a killer that they add from a specific franchise, or a set of characters maybe, or sometimes they'll even have a full-on set pieces, entire levels inspired by whatever property that they're adapting at this point. But this time, Five Nights at Freddy's. I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's is also a very big and niche franchise. I mean, it got a movie last year from Blumhouse, obviously very, very big. So I feel like it will probably be a substantial slice of content coming up. I would assume at least some kind of level pack. Five Nights at Freddy's, all of the animatronic guys that show up, that people are fans of all of them. So I can only assume that the killer character will be able to choose, perhaps. I don't know. No, there's no official news about any of that yet. I'm just spitballing, but good news for people who like multiplayer survival horror games and are very into these niche, even amongst horror video games, these niche interests, but with very dedicated, intense fan bases. So good. People are eating out here. Speaking of horror games, next piece of news comes from Kotaku, reporting that a Quiet Place video game is going to be launching in October. Looks like A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead is the name of this one. It's going to be a very narrative-heavy survival horror game coming from Saber Interactive. Quiet Place is having a moment? Question mark? I don't know. Quiet Place has always been a very popular franchise. The John Krasinski helmed horror franchise of, oh, here come the aliens from space. They attack you if you make a lot of noise thing. Quiet Place is a franchise that I have liked, not loved historically. The first two are fine. The first one is a little more fine than the second one. I feel like the second one is a lot of diminishing returns. The most recent one that came out, Quiet Place Day One, is actually my favorite of the franchise. A lot of that has to do with the cat. There's a cat in the movie. It's a very cute cat. I love the cat. Doing a lot of heavy lifting. But also I feel like the story in Day One is also a little stronger. Is like, I don't know. It's also a little less. The first two just feel so like Doom Prepper wet dream kind of thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way. And the prequel Day One doesn't have as much of that. So maybe this will be a little more in line with that. I don't know. Not a ton of details yet, but we know that it's going to be story driven. It will cost $30, coming to PS5, Xbox, PC, and it'll be out in October, which is a great time for a nice spooky game like this. So I'm thinking something like Alien Isolation, perhaps, being stalked by a creature. Because that's the thing about the Quiet Place franchise, right? Is that its mechanics are so simple, yet you can see how it can be adapted into a video game very easily in a kind of like, don't touch the floor or don't touch the lava kind of thing, where you can see a lot of stuff around you in the environment that's going to make noise. Try to avoid the things that make noise, and avoid the monsters coming to attack you. I feel like those kinds of games really started coming into popularity with Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And by those kinds of games, I mean being stalked by a creature and you, the player character, do not have traditional like weapons or arms to protect yourself with. And as time has gone on, I have found myself liking those kinds of games less and less. The one that really did it for me the best is Soma, and that's because they put a mode in that game where you can just kind of forget about the enemies in that game. Like they do not have the ability to kill you. They will still run up on you and maybe scare you, but you don't have to worry about dying. So you can just really be concerned with interacting with the story in that game, which is a very good story in Soma. If you haven't played Soma and you like sci-fi horror, may I recommend Soma. But there was even this year that, what was that game called? Still Wakes the Deep. That's the name of that game. It comes from Chinese Room, the developer, the people that brought you Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs. I believe Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther. And that is a game that I really wanted to like because it really puts you in the place of late 70s, I believe, Ireland oil rig. And they do a really good job of putting you in that space. And I like it's Cthulhu, Lovecraftian kind of stuff going on with its horror. And I like that stuff, but I got to the part where you're being pursued by monsters and have to navigate spaces where you're being attacked by monsters. And I just couldn't do it. I had seen it too many times. I knew that I didn't really want to interact with it. And I just ended up, I think I might eventually just watch a playthrough of that game, which stinks because I really like horror and I want to see the rest of that game because the setting, very good. So I'm hoping that for this, that the extra mechanics besides just, hey, avoid the monster, maybe the mechanics of, oh, don't make noise, don't run into things in, the environment that can make noise. Maybe that will help with the engagement part of that a little better, but I don't know. We'll see. If fans of The Quiet Place, I feel like have something to look forward to. So be on the lookout for that in October. All right, next piece of news here comes from Goaty Watch Central. Looks like a major update is coming to Balatro in 2025. That's right, folks. If you have not heard of Balatro, the indie game poker roguelite sensation, you need to get on playing Balatro. It is for sure going to be popping up on Game of the Year lists across the whole board. I can only assume it's all anyone was talking about it really early in the year when it released. I even heard people talking about it when the demo was going around for the first Steam Next Fest that was happening early in the year. And it is something that, at least in my group of friends, I will always log into Steam or Discord or whatever and see someone playing Balatro. So definitely play Balatro if you haven't played it. And thanks to the wild success that this, I believe, one-man dev team has seen from this game, he's going to be adding some major updates in 2025. Coming from the official Balatro Twitter account, he says that the update will bring some new ideas and strategies to the game, as well as a token of huge appreciation to the game's brilliant and passionate community. And the update will be completely free, which is rad. So I can only assume adding more jokers to the game, which gives you like static abilities that really like make the most of the meat of the deck building that you do in that game. Maybe some new decks with new mechanics and stuff. God, Balatro so good. Balatro so good. I kind of feel after I am done with this podcast, I might go and play some Balatro for sure. So exciting stuff for that. Moving on to the next news piece, it looks like Fortnite Battle Pass skins will now become available in the store page, which is nice for people who play Fortnite. I was playing Fortnite I was really hot and heavy into Fortnite for, I would say, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It was around the time that it was like within the same month that Dragon Ball Z characters and John Cena were added to the game store, that I was like, well, fuck it. And it was also around the same time that zero build mode was added to the game, where you didn't have to worry about the fort building part of Fortnite, which I am not a huge fan of, or at least very intimidated by entering games with the fort building and people being very good at it. And I just want to shoot in the shooting game. That's might be a millennial thing. Maybe it's like a millennial versus Gen Z, Gen Alpha thing as far as the philosophy of Fortnite, but that's where I sit. Zero build all the way. And I dropped off earlier this year. It was around the time they added the cars and Mad Max thing. It was right before then. It was, you know what it was? It was in the Greek god pantheon expansion that they did, the season, which I was having a good time with, but I think I was also at that time really wanting to dedicate more to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was the talk of the town at the time, and I needed to see that game to the end so I could see the ending of that game, because I didn't want to be super spoiled by the time that really became a conversation topic online. And then I haven't really picked it back up since then, which has been nice for my wallet. But maybe I don't have to worry about getting back into it as much, or in regards to, I don't have to feel the FOMO as much for being gone so long, because it looks like so Fortnite has the Battle Pass, and the Battle Pass has exclusive skins. But the skins were exclusive to the Battle Pass. If you did not have the Battle Pass and you weren't upgrading the battle pass or leveling up the battle pass to the point where you unlock the skins. You just didn't get them by the time the season ended. But now they are saying going forward, I don't think this counts for skins of the past, which is a funny sentence to say, skins of the past. But now going forward, any skins available in the battle passes will also be made available in the store page, so that if you just for whatever reason decided not to get the battle pass, or you didn't spend enough time with the battle pass while you were leveling up to get to unlocking those skins, you can just buy them in the store page. And yes, that is probably them going like, hey, we can probably juice some more money out of this whole deal if people just buy the skins. I mean, most people I feel like are already getting the battle pass anyways. And the thing is, the battle pass, it's like $9, and the usual skin in Fortnite, especially if you're getting the packs that come with all the back bling and gun skins and stuff, that can tend to set you back like anywhere between $15 to $22, which is a lot more than a battle pass. So, but if you're just worrying about missing out on a specific skin that you wanted, then this is good news. Good news for Fortnite players. All right, time to get on to some sadder news. We got more layoffs coming in the video game industry. It looks like the company formerly known as Facebook, Meta, shuts down Ready at Dawn. And this one's a big bummer because Ready at Dawn recently has been heavy in development for VR games, which is why they were picked up by Meta to make some VR games for their portfolio. But in the early days, what I know as Ready at Dawn is the people that brought you really cool PSP games, like some of the best PSP games in the entire catalog, like the Daxter platformer, that was like the spin-off of the Jak and Daxter series where you just play as Daxter. They did both of the God of War, Chains of Olympus, and Ghost of Sparta games, which are secretly some of the best God of War games. Like, they are just straight up, traditional character action God of War games, but squished down onto the PSP and play really, really good. And then they also, when the PS4 hit, they tried their hand at big AAA video games with The Order 1886, which I think was mixed critically. I don't think it sold particularly well. I remember like people being really hyped on it because at the time it was one of the best looking video games. Just like the fidelity was really, really good looking, but the gameplay was maybe a little restricted, little funneling down hallways of narrative shooting. But I think The Order 1886 has a dedicated fan base. There's people I've heard talk they like that game a lot, and that it maybe didn't get its due. And then they ended up doing like VR games for Sony, like the Lone Echo series of games. And then they got bought by Meta, which I'm not the biggest fan of Meta, let's say. I know people who have signed up for Threads. Some people in this very podcast network have signed up for Threads, but I don't really want to because I already have a Facebook account that I barely use and an Instagram account that I kind of look at things but don't really post on. And I don't really want to give Meta another window into my data. So not doing that. So Meta, I'm not the biggest fan of Meta, and now I'm really not the biggest fan of Meta because they have shut down Ready at Dawn Studios. But the good news is that it looks like they are claiming that the people who have lost who used to be at Ready at Dawn, a lot of those employees were encouraged to apply elsewhere within the Oculus suite of studios. because they want to try and hold on to as many of those developers as possible. And that they are saying that the closing of the studio wasn't indicative of wider cuts to a number of the first-party games on Quest, and that it's still committed to VR development. So they're just trying to, I guess, not have another studio to run, instead try to like scatter these people across the studios that they already own, which I don't know, isn't a great answer for what they're trying to do, but oh well. And people are definitely going to be losing jobs, maybe moving to other industries and whatnot, but I hope that those people land on their feet well. And I don't know what this says about the future of VR. I feel like it's been pretty grim lately. Like, what's a recent VR game you can think of that has garnered any kind of attention? They're getting fewer and far between at this point. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Next piece of news looks like Arcane Studios' legacy lives on, and Wolf-Eye Studios' upcoming retro sci-fi RPG. This news comes from Polygon. It looks like Wolf-Eye Studios, who is made up of some former Arcane Austin devs, particularly Rafael Colantonio, who is their co-founder there, who was previously part of Arcane Studios doing Dishonored and Prey. And they're saying that the next game that they have coming down the pipeline is going to be a retro sci-fi universe game. And for people who are fans of stuff like Dishonored and Prey, those kind of immersive first-person RPG games, we'll have a lot to look forward to with their new upcoming game. Wolf-Eye Studios is interesting. They put out that Weird West game in 2022, the kind of dark magic Western top-down isometric immersive sim game, which I enjoyed playing. I really liked the vibes. I could not really get my hands around the controls. They thought they were just a little too loosey-goosey for me. I was playing on PC I tried mouse and keyboard and gamepad, and I just did not love either control method. But I really loved the potential. I thought, as far as an immersive sim RPG goes, the mechanics were very, very good. The ways that just the little decisions that you made would have big ripple effects throughout like the entire narrative that you could follow. And, you hear a lot of games making those promises, but I feel like Weird West really had the potential to live up to those promises the more and more you played it. This new game, which they haven't said what it is yet, like the name or anything or when it's coming out, we just know that it's a retro sci-fi immersive sim RPG. But it's good to know that, so Arcane Austin, they recently got shuttered by Microsoft, which had a lot of people really mad because it was around the same time that they shuttered Tango Works, which brought you Hi-Fi Rush and stuff like that. People were, and Arcane Austin did Redfall, the multiplayer shooter vampire game, which was rough. People didn't love it. And I think that game kind of had like a rough development as well. And then they got the axe by Microsoft and the big wave of layoffs. So at least it seems like the spirit of those, the people that made those games will live on through Wolf-Eye Studios with their new upcoming game. So we have that to look forward to. All right, you want some big news? Here's some big news. Y'all like anime? Of course I like anime. I like anime. Cool people like anime, right? Cool people. High school anime club, all those people were real cool. So cool people, heads up. We got a new Dragon Ball MOBA announced. Speaking of cool people, cool people who like cool video games, MOBAs. Have you heard of them? Yeah, new Dragon Ball MOBA has been announced for mobile and Steam. This news comes to us from Video Games Chronicle. Looks like a beta test is incoming later this month in August. Signups are ready for this new MOBA called Dragon Ball Project Multi. They are saying it's the first ever 4 versus 4 team-oriented battle game for Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball in general, because there's super guys in here too. There's I judging by this trailer, they put out a trailer. It looks like you got, your Gokus, Trunks, Vegeta, Zamasu from Super is in here. I think I may have seen a Wheeze somewhere in there. You got Majin Buu. All the stars are here for playing this Dragon Ball MOBA. It's funny. Dragon Ball as a franchise, when it comes to video games, I feel like is always a little behind the curve as far as like genres that they decide to go into. Remember Dragon Ball The Breakers? It came out in like 2022. It was speaking of asymmetric multiplayer horror games like Dead by Daylight. It was basically like their version of Dead by Daylight, but you played as just like normal citizens running around a town as Cell comes to town to eat everybody, which is a really cool and interesting idea for a game. But it's also, Dragon Ball, which is a very popular, one of the most popular anime franchises. But I feel like in terms of video games and that's a lot of niches all at once, right? Anime, Dragon Ball Z, video games, and asymmetric horror games. That was maybe just one too many niche interests into one gig, because I don't think it performed that well. There might be people still playing it, I don't know. But hey, here's a MOBA, everybody. The franchise, the genre that just keeps getting new games, except that well has kind of run dry in the past couple years. I would say the only ones that people are still really playing is League of Legends and Dota 2. I played a fair amount of Heroes of the Storm when that was still getting support. I think you can still play Heroes of the Storm, Blizzard's MOBA, but they don't really have anyone actively working on adding more content to that game anymore. It's essentially a dead game, just that the servers are still on. That one was decently approachable compared to something like League of Legends or Dota 2. And I don't really have that much of an affinity for Blizzard games, but I had fun with that one. I know what a StarCraft ghost is, whatever that lady's name is. So it had some characters I recognized, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like people are kind of getting away from MOBAs in a sense. I mean, people still play them, but even Riot, the people that make League of Legends, they're trying to expand into some different genres. Like they have that new fighting game. What is it? It's called like 20XX, but I think you're supposed to say it a different way, like 20 cross or something. 20 times cross. I don't know. But they got their new team fighting game thing going on over there. They're trying to expand into some different stuff. I feel like new interest in MOBA is maybe waning. So I find it interesting that Dragon Ball has decided to get into it. Oh yeah, there's that Pokemon MOBA too, right? Wow. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe people who like MOBAs and people who like Dragon Ball will be enough to sustain this thing. I know, I feel like any Dragon Ball game, especially on phones, that's the thing. This is going to be on phones. And I feel like the Dragon Ball games, like they have that gacha too. I feel like that has enough people supporting it that it is still going, making a lot of money for them. So Dragon Ball Project Multi beta coming later this month. Go sign up for it if you want to try that out. And last bit of news here, looks like I think QuakeCon is happening right now as I am recording this podcast, or maybe it just wrapped up, perhaps. As you're listening to this, I believe QuakeCon is over. But right before QuakeCon started, it announced that they were going to and have since released new enhanced versions of the original Doom and Doom 2 to Steam and I believe Xbox and PS5. And the enhanced versions you get. So it comes in as a package called Doom plus Doom 2, and it comes with a bunch of maps and what I believe used to be WODs, which are like the fan created expansion levels to these games. It says it comes with TNT Evolution, the Plutonia Experiment, master levels for Doom 2, and such. But a big thing, and this is interesting, it comes with a new thing called Legacy of Rust, which is a new episode created in collaboration by id Software, Night Dive Studios, and Machine Games, who are all like, studios owned by id and Bethesda and whatnot. So new professionally developed levels for Doom and Doom 2 in 2024, which it's kind of crazy that new stuff keeps happening with Doom, and I love to see it. I also heard that people got this and were trying to shove WODs into this new thing. It was just crashing because I think WODs are mostly developed for, I believe it's called Jeezy Doom now, which is like the open source Doom engine that people just like make stuff for. And yeah, not working so well with whatever proprietary stuff they have going on with this game. But Doom's cool. I really like Doom. I played the original Doom 1 and 2 recently, like in the past couple of years for the first time, and those games still hold up. They're still very good first-person shooters, that kind of established the whole genre, basically. And they still play really good. These new ones just map really well to a mouse and keyboard. Play them real good. And there's just also just like the community does cool stuff with Doom. People who are horror fans like myself have probably heard of the Doom WOD My House, which is a very House of Leaves-esque twisting labyrinth of a horror hell maze. It's very cool. Go look up. There's a really good video essay out there about My House for the Doom WOD that's very, very good. So Doom, it's still happening. Still, the original Doom is still, I mean they're still making new Doom games. That, what is it, the Dark Age is the one that's in development right now, that's like Doom, but it's a prequel and it's all medieval, and you have a shield, you can throw the shield at people, ram the shield at people. That I'm excited for that game. But yeah, Doom. Anyways, that's it for the news. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about some of the video games that I've been playing. All right, we're back. Kunitsugami. Been playing it still. The game brought to you by Capcom. Top-down world isometric. Samurai fighting demons, but you got your crew of like archers and axemen. Kind of strategy setup, trying to get the princess across the map into the gate, get her through the goal, get the princess to the goal. I'm still having a great time with it. It's like I said on the pilot of this podcast, a very good podcasting game. By that meaning a video game to play while you are listening to a podcast. The gameplay loop has really expanded at this point. We got some town building stuff going on, where you're telling villagers to go build different stuff in the town that doesn't really like serve a purpose to you besides get you more resources so that you can upgrade your guys to do more in the combat parts of the game. But it still feels nice, like building this community, and you get upgrades from the princess for, completely building out certain parts of the towns. But what I think is really cool is the boss fights. The boss fights are very unique from each other, kind of, different setups. The one that I did recently was I was in like a really dark cave, and I had to keep telling my dudes to go light the lanterns in the cave so that it would reveal the weak point of the boss so that I could, go and attack him. Just really, really cool stuff, like really interesting boss fights, which I really appreciate when a game really puts effort and thought into how the boss fight works instead of just making a big dude that is just like a damage sponge that you just attack over and over again until it dies. So yeah, Kunitsugami is still a really great game. I have heard people describe it in a really good way, like the best way meaning possible, that it is one of the best PS2 games that you could possibly play in the modern era, and that it has that classic Capcom vibe. Like people who like stuff like maybe like Beautiful Joe or Killer 7 or Odama, if people remember Odama. It's very much has that kind of feeling to it, which I'm just glad that Capcom can make stuff like this still. It's so good. In the indie space, I've been checking out some stuff. A game that I found during the Steam Next Fest, a game called One Button Bosses, which is a kind of pixelated arcade shoot 'em up, but it's as the name implies, it's played by one button. This comes from Midnight Munchies, the studio, and you are this little ship that tends to be like just like a little shape. Like I think you start off as like a little diamond shape, and you are on this track, and there is an enemy in the center of the track, and you're kind of spinning around in circles automatically, and you press a button. The initial mechanic is you press the button and you shift to the other direction, and you are constantly shooting. And the faster you go, the faster your shots go, and you're dealing more and more damage faster to the enemy in the center as it's kind of like shooting out different waves and obstacles at you, and you hit the button to reverse course on the track and try to avoid the shots and obstacles that are coming your way. And as the game goes on, you can unlock some different mechanics for that one button press. Like some allow you to accelerate instead of change course, or become like intangible as long as you're holding down the button. The problem I'm having with it is that I feel like the difficulty has increased a lot just in the short early moments of the game, where I'm kind of starting to become intimidated by it. I don't know. I need to spend a little bit more time with it, but its initial concept is very good. I think I am enjoying it still. I also tried out an indie game from Microbird Games, Dungeons of Hinterberg, which it's on Game Pass through PC and Xbox. I don't know, man. I really, really, really wanted to like this game. It is a Zelda-like game, like Zelda mechanics. There's Z targeting. There's no jump button, but you run off of edges and you jump, and there's a bunch of dungeons. But the interesting part of the game is that it takes place in what appears to be like a fantasy version of the Swiss Alps. And it takes place in a reality that is a lot like ours, but magic has popped up in the Swiss Alps with all these dungeons, and they have created this kind of tourism industry in this town where magic and dungeons are real. And people are, taking time off from their workaday jobs in the office to come and slay monsters and do magic and, just kind of like live out these cool D&D fantasies. And the game is split up into these sections where you are the dungeons as they are presented are kind of like hiking trails in like the actual Swiss Alps, if that makes sense. Like they're graded by difficulty in the same way that like a hiking trail or a mountain climb would be graded for people in those hobbies. And the game is separated into sections where you hike on these trails, find the dungeon, do the dungeon, which has, Zelda puzzles in it and you're fighting monsters and whatnot. And then after you're done with the dungeon, you head back to town and do socializing with people. That has really good writing. I actually really, really like the writing in the game. I really enjoy the kind of slow paced, just kind of, hey, I'm on vacation, talking to people stuff with it. And then you do like a nighttime activity, whether that's hanging out with people or going shopping or, any of the other stuff around the town, which the town is really well realized. Again, I really, really want to like this game, but my main hang up is the combat just feels really mushy. Like I am not a huge fan of the combat. It feels like the controls are just a little janky. The animations of everything are a little janky. I don't love the art style, which is this kind of cel-shaded look, and I like cel-shaded graphics, but the way that they're implemented here, it just feels like a lot of stuff in the environment is phasing in and out in ways that just look really unpolished. And I really wanted to like this game, but for whatever reason, it is just not super clicking with me. I am about 3 to 4 dungeons deep into it. I believe there's something like 25 dungeons to do. And yeah, I think I might hang in there with it for a little bit longer, but I don't really see myself finishing this game as I stand right now. And I really like games like this. Like there was a game that I feel like no one besides me has ever talked about it. It was a game that came out in I think like 2022 called Dreamscaper. It was on Xbox Game Pass. It might still be, I don't know. But it's think something like Hades, or it's a top-down roguelike game with heavy combat. And it's also kind of like Hades, where it has the thing where you go and do the combat run, and then when you die, you go back to a place and socialize with people. But the socialization in Dreamscaper is you are a girl who has moved from her hometown to a new home, or to a new town, and is trying to make all these new connections with people as, an adult. And the adult relationships in Dreamscaper, I feel like, are so genuine and, again, has good writing. Dreamscaper, and it's like, it's a little bit twee in the vibes, so that might not be everyone's cup of tea. But yeah, Dreamscaper's cool. I played through all of Dreamscaper. I beat that game, which I very rarely do for roguelikes. I feel like I tend to kind of lose steam on roguelikes, but I saw Dreamscaper all the way through. So if that's still on Game Pass, people go find that one. Dreamscaper is very, very cool. But yeah, we'll see about Dungeons of Hinterberg. I don't know. But this last game I want to talk about is a game that I have not actually gotten hands on with yet, because it is technically in my shared Steam library, but I haven't gotten able to play it yet because my wife is playing it all the time. It's a new farming sim called Fields of Mistria, coming to you from NPC Studios. From what I understand, from what I've seen, it is pretty much just straight up Stardew Valley. If you like Stardew Valley, those kinds of farming sims, it appears to definitely be a game for you, because it feels like with the farming sim genre has really exploded since Stardew Valley hit the scene in, I believe it was 2016. So it's been almost 8 years of the renaissance of the farming sim. But I feel like since then, in whatever Summer Games Fest season of trailers that hit, these like trailer presentations, there's always at least like 4 to 6 new farming sims in all of those. So I feel like there a lot of these farming sims tend to get buried or just not talked about because there are so many of them, and a lot of them try to have their little twist but end up just kind of being more Stardew, but like with not as much of the charm of the actual Stardew. But Fields of Mistria, just from me looking over the shoulder of my wife who's playing it, it seems like it has a lot of personality. It has really great character portraits that have kind of a like Sailor Moon-esque like anime vibe to it. And it seems like it's also NPC Studios have obviously played a lot of farming sims, have spent a lot of time thinking about farming sims and like what a lot of quality of life improvements can be made to farming sims to make them, like kind of advance the genre. One thing my wife has said that she's really enjoyed is that you have like multiple slots of outfits that you can wear. I believe it goes up to 8, but she says she wants more. So maybe they'll, add that in a later update. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the traditional 4 seasons, prepare for the next season by getting different kinds of fruits and vegetables that grow better in certain seasons thing. It's in early access right now, pretty cheap. I think it's like $13 right now or something, $13-14. It's overwhelmingly positive on Steam. I think the first week it was on sale, it hit the top sellers list, so good for them. Seeing really great success. And my wife has said that I think she feels like she's kind of hit the wall as far as progression goes. She's like at a point in the game where she has enough money to basically do like whatever she wants. And she's done like a full cycle of the year cycle. So I'm thinking probably right now that maybe she's kind of, started to hit the wall as far as content that is available. But that's the beauty of early access, right? And I feel like games in early access, I feel like early access kind of has a stigma of like, oh, I don't want to, start playing a game when it's not finished. But I feel like a lot of games hitting early access these days, the good ones at least, have been really good about putting out a game that feels like a content complete game. But, they've gotten to a point where they want to do more with the game, but they need more money to come in so that they can make more of the game. So early access can facilitate that. And then they just, add more stuff to the game. So I think it seems like things are going really well for them monetarily with the release of Fields of Mistria. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of really strong updates from them coming in the future. So yeah, so video games are good right now, especially if you're into indies. I realize that was a lot of indies I just talked about. Kunitsugami, I guess, is the one AAA game coming from out of Capcom, and it's not even one of their big tentpole games, but good stuff coming out right now. I'd say one of the things I'm looking forward to the most as far as upcoming releases is next week we are getting the next game from Strange Scaffold, that indie studio. Their new game, I Am Your Beast, which is a trailer that I played during Steam Next Fest, and holy shit, it is so... That demo was crazy good. I played all of the content in that demo. I'll probably talk to you guys about it next week, so I won't talk to you too much about it now, but very cool. I would say if you liked Neon White, the like speedrunning first-person card game, this feels a lot like Neon White in the ways that you are trying to play through a level very quickly and efficiently and trying to, upgrade your rank, like A rank to S rank type of thing. So I am very excited for I Am Your Beast, and I'm sure I'll talk your ear off about it next week. Now that we're done talking about the video games of the week, it is now time for the Strafe Shuffle. And for the Strafe Shuffle this week, folks, I did something I'm not proud of. But I did it for you. I did it for you, the listener. I went and saw the new film in theaters, Borderlands. Which, before going to see, I will admit, my opinion may have been swayed in a certain way, seen as how it had debuted on Rotten Tomatoes at 0%. And I believe as of the recording of this podcast, it is now sitting at 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, Rotten Tomato scores don't mean everything. I've loved movies that, sit at like 12% or whatever on Rotten Tomatoes before, for various reasons. But this Borderlands movie, oh boy, I believe I saw it in a theater with maybe 5 other people. To be fair, I saw it at like 11 o'clock on a Friday, which is usually when I go see movies. But it, yeah. I believe in my Letterboxd review, I said it was oversaturated gamer puke. And as far as the Borderlands franchise goes, I will admit, I have not ever really been the biggest fan of Borderlands. I played the first one when it came out. I played about halfway through it. I played some of the second one with friends. I think the second one was the first time I actually played, the game kind of as it's intended to be played, multiplayer, co-op. And I, again, kind of got halfway through it. I wasn't really engaging with the story that much, even though I feel like that's the one that people say has the good story because it has, Handsome Jack or whatever. But I've just never really connected with the type of humor that Borderlands has. I feel like it was when it was incepted, it was really coming out of the, Epic Bacon Narwhal-esque humor of the late 2000s. And, like very like heavy ICANN has cheeseburger meme humor around that time. And I feel like the franchise has never really grown out of that. But again, I'm not really like, I'm not too invested in the Borderlands universe, so I don't really have that much of a connection with the characters in this movie. I believe that is, like the original cast of Borderlands characters, but with your Lilith and Roland, and Tiny Tina, Tannis? Is that her name? The science lady? Anyways, this and all these the people portraying these characters, the cast is weirdly stacked for this movie. Like Cate Blanchett, you got Kevin Hart, my beloved Jamie Lee Curtis is in this. Some of these people I don't know why they're here, but Jamie Lee Curtis I at least can understand how she got here because I feel like a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis's public persona has to do with her going to like nerdy video game conventions with her kids because her kids like video games, and she's like, I'm the cool mom who does like fun stuff with her video game loving kids, and I'll do like a Chun-Li cosplay at the video game convention. So at least I kind of understand why she would say yes to something like this. But the movie was also directed by Eli Roth, who is someone who traditionally makes horror movies. And even as a horror fan, the movies that Eli Roth I tend to not really connect with that well. With Hostel and stuff like that. I did like the Thanksgiving slasher movie that he put out last year. I actually really enjoyed. It's not an amazing movie, but it is something that I enjoyed to the degree where I could see myself putting that movie on during Thanksgiving, like for years to come, just to get good, Thanksgiving horror vibes coming out of that. But the movie itself, Borderlands, yeah, the energy, the pacing of its storytelling reminded me a lot of Rise of Skywalker. And for those who know that I mean that in the bad way. And that it's just like was going from plot point to plot point to plot point, just like no breath, just keep going, refuse to stop for nothing kind of storytelling that just kind of leaves you exhausted and not caring about anything after a while. And I will admit, like, Cate Blanchett was here to work. Like, she is acting in this movie in a way that I would not expect her to for something like the Borderlands movie. And something else I will say that the movie does well is that I feel like it fleshes out its setting very well. The way it realizes the Borderlands aesthetics and setting was really well done. But some of the CGI was maybe not the best. And then, yeah, just a story that just like left me feeling brain dead by the end of it. And a lot of the jokes just not landing. I really cannot remember laughing once at any of the jokes. Oh yeah, that's right. Speaking of not laughing at jokes, Jack Black is in this thing as Claptrap. And like a lot of Claptrap's whole deal is that, hey, I'm really annoying and I'm here to annoy all of the other characters by just like, spouting non sequiturs and repeating the same joke over and over again. And yeah, that doesn't work for me. That was not Claptrap that I think got 0 laughs out of me. So yeah, usually for these kinds of movies, I say walk, don't run. I would say like maybe don't even get up off the couch. Just don't. You don't have to go see the Borderlands movie. I took that bullet for you. Pun intended. Yeah. Not worth really going into much more. I'm sure you get the idea. Don't go see the Borderlands movie. It's not good. But you know what is good? This podcast. That's right, folks. Thank you so much for listening to the Squared Circle Strafe podcast. If you like what we do, leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts. If you like the show, you can also follow me on Twitter at UziNeon. If you want to catch more of me talking about some real nerdy stuff, you can follow the Didn't Get All of It podcast and hear me and the rest of the Fatal 4 hosts talk about the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. You can also sign up for our Patreon to get exclusive access to our Discord, as well as bonus podcast content and the satisfaction of supporting independent podcasting media. Head to patreon.com/fatal4pod. That's FOUR pod to sign up for that and get some cool stuff. Thank you again for listening. And as always, enjoy your gaming.